Hello, everyone. Today we are talking to very special guest, Jason Oakley, CEO of Afin Bank. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be here.
Yeah, I want to welcome you here in Bratislava, in our headquarters. And I'm very honored, and I want to thank you on behalf of Vacuumlabs for picking us to be your partner on this amazing collaborative journey on building your tech and your product. And I'm personally glad that I get the chance to talk to you because I love the community banking and serving communities, because I really think if one community thrives, the whole society thrives. So that's something I really admire. So let's dive into that.
Excellent.
Nice. So Jason, for our listeners, so what does Afin Bank do? Could you tell us shortly?
Okay, so we are a digital bank. I cross my fingers and every other part of my body in that I'm expecting my letter from the PRA and the FCA on Monday to give me what's called authorisation with restriction, which means that I'll be a bank. My principal goal, there's probably two principal lines of business. The overriding one is to serve the African diaspora. So those foreign nationals that don't have a UK passport, but they'll have a work visa or an education visa. They may have a dual passport, but one of the fundamental issues with the diasporans is that the big banks, because they have a very vanilla standardised approach, and overseas nationals tend to not have a credit record, or they don't have any history in the UK. It's very difficult to get products and services, particularly lending-based products, from them. So we want to serve the African diaspora, and there's 1.5 million of African diaspora in the UK. There's actually 9.6 million diaspora generally in the UK. That's 1 in 6 of the population. And people forget how critically important the roles that they play. 44% of non-UK NHS staff are African. They are absolutely fundamental in our National Health Service. They tend to be well educated with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, so professional services, public services. So they've got a critical role to play. They are underserved. So we want to address that. And also the second part of our proposition is the intermediated mortgage market, where we feel we can add some real value. And that isn't so much with the diaspora, and they're very welcome to apply, of course, but it will be a much broader set of clients. So those are the two key areas. But the African diaspora is really important to us. It was given a lot of emphasis because our parent is called Waikari. It's one of the biggest reinsurers in the world, based in Africa, headquartered in Sierra Leone. And our group chairman, Kofi Dufour, was passionate about getting a London-based bank that could serve the African diaspora. And, when we did our initial research, we were shocked at that service offering. Some African banks that sit in London, both the pricing and the propositions were very narrow, very restrictive. The big banks really were not serving them at all. So we saw there was a real problem and an issue to deliver. So, that's where we're focusing some of our energy.
Amazing. So you already started to talk a bit about that, but so I'm curious, like, how did this idea, came about? So what preceded it?
Yeah, so I've always been driven to just curiosity, I think. I've got a very eclectic background. I've been in banking now almost 40 years, and I've served corporate, SME, private bank, personal customers, ATMs, all sorts of different things. I got the opportunity to look at the African diaspora. I'd never considered it, in all honesty. It wasn't a market I was overly familiar with. But I got to meet an incredibly passionate gentleman, Kofi Dufour, who's the group chairman. And in fairness to him and his team, they've built Waikari, the insurance business, to a very profitable, successful blue chip in about 12 years. It's a fantastic story, what they've achieved. And he was so passionate and driven about the opportunity, and we really hit it off. And you know, I have slowly but surely educated myself in terms of the opportunities in that market and how we can better serve. And one of the things I've learned is that it's a bottom up approach. It's not something I can't suddenly go out on social media channels or do some above the line advertising. This is hard miles. This is getting into the churches, into local communities, into associations like Nigerians in the UK. 5,000 Nigerians are part of that association, or the Zimbabwe Accountants Association, or similar associations. We're talking to lots of different people, but it's very much community based. You talked before about community, and this is really community, where values are very strong, family values, religious values, very, very strong. And it's about building trust and establishing credibility, and also being able to resonate. We understand the problems. Let me give you an example of a problem. You know, if you come over, let's say you've got a job with PwC, a well-paid job. You know, your perhaps first or second job with PwC, you're very well educated. You won't have a credit history here, and you know. Not unsurprisingly, all of us aspire to own our home. We don't want to rent, really, because it's money down the drain. We want to own. And you approach the banks and say, right, I want a mortgage. I'm well paid. I've got a very good job. And so the first question they ask is, we'll do a credit search. Well, strangely enough, just arriving, there is no credit history in the UK. The next question is, well, what's your status in terms of your visa? You know, how long can you work here? What's this? What's that? And so a lot of the big banks, using their own credit criteria, essentially have said you need 3 years of residency. So you're not allowed to apply for a mortgage until you've lived here for 3 years. Now, we think that's hogwash. We don't agree with that at all. We say, okay, credit and affordability is driven by your circumstance, not how long your visa is, or, you know, the fact that, you know, we can build a credit report using some credit agencies overseas. So we want to directly address that. We want to say, okay, you know, not just professional services professionals, but, you know, people across the broad spectrum of the African diaspora that add real value to the UK economy. We want to provide a more flexible, more bespoke service to give you, you know, the opportunity. You know, our rules are much more flexible. So as soon as you've been here for 6 months, we'll talk to you about a mortgage. You don't have to wait another 2.5 years. You know, so we are designed for that clientele. We understand that market, and I'm actually, one of the things I'm proudest about is 40% of my colleagues are representing that diaspora, so that we face off in terms of diversity, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of understanding the motivations of our ultimate new clients. And whilst I can't profess to be in there, I work very hard to empathise and understand, and I have people around me that advise me. And obviously I'm fortunate to have the most fantastic group board that also helps steer us, as well as our bank board, which is a more traditional bank board because of the regulated nature of our business. But, you know, we're really excited, and we think there's a great opportunity, and the feedback we're getting from the communities, we've been so pleased.
Yeah, I love that. So I love the bottom-up approach, because I think the only way how to build a successful product is to know your customer, right, and know their needs. So amazing that you are doing that. And also, I completely agree with the housing and with the mortgage. Like, it changes your life if you have a place that you can call your own, and you do not have that insecurity of renting, and, you know. And it also, I think, empowers if someone is willing to look at you much sooner and say, like, I believe in you, right? Because I do not need your 3 years of credit history. I believe in you after, you know, your 6 months of work and other criteria that I can look at.
I feel I should be recruiting you into the organisation. You're articulating better than me.
No.
But in fairness, you know, it is about security and about continuity. but also it's a critical part of wealth creation. Most people's wealth is underpinned by their home. That is more important than anything. It gives you stability, it gives you certainty. We're addressing in the UK at the minute some of the imbalance with tenants where they can have a no-fault eviction. Suddenly the landlord decides, I don't want you to be here anymore. And you've literally got 2 months and you've got to get out and find somewhere else. So, there's all sorts of issues kicking around. But fundamentally for me, it's about fairness, it's about respect, and it's about, as you rightly said, it's about understanding your customers and giving them a great customer experience. Because, I'm sure we'll come on to technology. Technology is a wonderful enabler. But it's still a people business.
Yeah.
I still need to connect. I still need to give you confidence that you understand, we understand what you want, and we'll deliver that. Because a mortgage is a big decision in people's lives. It's a big commitment. So we're working very hard to win that trust.
Yeah. And, according to every survey in the banking, trust is the number one factor when you are deciding, where to take service, where to take products such as mortgage, because as you say, it's a commitment almost for a lifetime, right?
A good chunk of your working life in any event.
But what I love is that you are combining impact with what sounds like a very, very good business, right? Both of these things into one proposition. So kudos for that. So what sort of maybe vision for the Afin Bank and what comes after you successfully launch the mortgage product and the first version that we are building together?
Well, and the thing I learned about new licenses and getting and is that you have a critical stakeholder in there, which is called the two regulators, that you have to get them comfortable and they have to be happy with your roadmap. So starting with mortgages and buy-to-let, and once we get our final regulatory approval, deposits, is a fairly vanilla, relatively straightforward entry point, which makes this relatively easy to analyse and evaluate from a regulatory perspective. But our ambitions are far, far greater than that. So I've already alluded to the fact that we've got 9.6 million diasporans in the UK. And actually the Indian and the Polish diaspora are the two biggest. The African diaspora sits in the league, but it certainly isn't at the top. But there's a reason for Africa because of our shareholders, and we want to address specifically that segment first. But looking slightly further afield, we can see the opportunity to improve trade between the UK and Africa. By the way, Africa is the next continent for growth. It is going to explode. Yeah. I've been over to Sierra Leone, I've been in Ghana, and wow, I think the potential's amazing. I think everything's geared up for that continent to become similar to some of the growth we've seen in Southeast Asia and in other places. So I think that there's real latent potential there. So I think it's a very exciting place. But so looking medium term, what is in and of course the roadmap will chop and change. Things do change, but things like potentially a business current account, certainly cross-border payments, cross-border trade finance. So things that will allow the UK and Africa to drive more trade, more commerce, strengthen that relationship, and also create economic growth on both sides. Because the other thing that I find super motivating, and my parent does this brilliantly, is go back into the community and invest, whether that's education, whether that's putting in place programs to support younger education, children and school children getting more opportunity, or becoming progressively more specialist education. Waikeria, our parent, invests very significant sums in improving social mobility, improving people's chance. Meritocracy. Don't be constrained by where you were born or some of the constraints that you may find in life. If you've got the intellect, the drive and the capability, open those things up. And I think that's also, from a purpose perspective, makes us feel very proud that we're making a real difference in people's lives. Yes, we want to make profit, but we also want to create a society that is sustainable and we leave something that's really good behind and that can endure.
I love this giving back aspect, and also when you speak about the trade, like we know that when there is economic prosperity, it helps everyone and it helps with other aspects of your life, from health to stability, sometimes political stability even. So that's amazing what you guys are doing, and I really admire that.
Well, I've got to give most of the credit to Waikuri, our parent, but as I say, they've set the tone, and we're certainly going to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah. So you mentioned technology, right? And we've been partners on this amazing journey with you guys. So I'm curious, how do you see sort of role of the technology in your journey, right? What's the role of in the achieving of what you are set out to do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think firstly, technology is critical, but I was alluding to it a little bit earlier that I think technology is an enabler, and I've seen, not just in banking, but I pick banking, but there's plenty of other examples where people have seen technology as a precursor for cost reduction and for simplification and for progressively more remote relationship. And I think that is a mistake. I think customers need touch points, particularly around financial services and banking, because trust that we've already established is really important. So for me, I want to use technology to enable the richness of a discussion. So if a client rings the Afin Centre of Excellence, which is our customer contact centre, I want somebody on the other end of that telephone to have all of the information at hand so that they can provide an effortless experience to our clients, and they walk away thinking that was great. It was really clear. Whatever my query was, I've responded, I've answered. And also, I want technology to allow the client choice, to self-serve, to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it. So it provides flexibility, it provides accessibility, but it's also enabling our relationship and our interactions to be better quality, to get it right first time, to execute properly. What I don't subscribe to, and I never have, is that you put these infernal chatbots in that you never can speak to a human, and you get totally frustrated because you feel like you're going round in circles and you can never get to the person to say, I've got a problem. I want the experience to be good for clients, and they recommend us and they feel good about it. And I think sometimes cost has overridden service, and we're not going to let that happen.
I am trying to let it sink in. So you perceive technology as an enabler of a good customer experience, right? And of enabler of building of the trust.
Well, but it also, of course, it drives efficiency. It drives frictionless. There's lots of benefits, but I've seen too many examples, particularly in banking, where technology has been seen as, and this is within the executive of the banks. This isn't the technology company's fault, because the technology company will, as a partner, will do what they're being asked to do in terms of scope. But I don't see. I think some clients now are wary because the experience isn't as good as it could be. The cost has been denuded, and to some extent, you don't get done what you need to do. So for me, I want to drive efficiency. I want to give clients self-serve choice. But I also want to use technology in the fingertips of our colleagues to give a great experience. So, I think the architecture we're building is fantastic. I really do. And our partners are first class, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. You don't go into this space and choose Thought Machine unless you want scale, unless you're ambitious. So,
Exactly.
and equally, we'll talk about Vacuumlabs, but that is a massive bonus for me. The quality, I'd not experienced it before, and the quality of the engineers, the quality of the relationship building. If you want an example of how to build a great relationship, go to Thomas and Andy Birch, because those guys are very capable. And then I was speaking to Monica earlier about, tell me about the engineers, Monica. What should I be saying? Monica's our Chief Technology Officer, and I first brought her in as a CTO at 28 years old for the previous bank, and she's like, she's got a brain the size of a planet. That girl is so talented, it's untrue. And she said, but the engineers, they're the best we've ever worked with. The culture is fantastic. The problem solving, the kind of helping us with IP, intellectual property. So we've got, if you'd have asked me 15 months ago, where would you have put an integration partner on your list of priorities? Bearing in mind that my bias and predisposition is all integration partners are Indian. Not that I've got any problems with Indians. But where is Vacuumlabs on my list now? Right at the top. At the top. Because I can say with absolute sincerity, any issue we've had, we found an engineer that can solve it. We found creative solutions, and even if it's kind of slightly quirky, or let me give you a daft example. We decided to use HubSpot for our website, and that's the Hubble language. And we were all looking at it. Who knows about Hubble language? Nobody. Well, somebody in Vacuumlabs did, and they helped us fix it. Vacuumlabs is like a sweet shop with just jars and jars of sweets. It doesn't matter. You can always find one to fix a problem or to come up with a solution. So, people like Hugh and Martin have done a fantastic job for us. We've been very, very pleased. And every engineer we ever come across, the attitude is fantastic. The culture here is great. If I can aspire to create that culture in my bank, I'll be very pleased.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear this. And I have to say, now we need to hire you as a sales consultant, right? Because I think you can pitch Vacuumlabs now maybe much better than sometimes we can.
And
right?
It's sincere. The thing about me, I'm at the point in my career where I'm not, I don't embellish really. I talk from my experience, and I genuinely have been super impressed with Vacuumlabs.
That's amazing. But you started to talk about also other partners, right? What we were building together is amazing piece of technology, and as you mentioned, we are building in on top of Thought Machine's Vault, so their core banking system, and Thought Machine is also amazing. Advanced piece of technology, and I believe there are many others. So how do you see this sort of combination ecosystem of players helping you in achieving what you want to achieve?
Well, part of it, by the way, I should say, with Thought Machine, from day one, that project has been green. They've executed really well. And we've been very, very happy. It's a more complex architecture. So in my old bank, I use Mambu, which closed loop versus open loop. But what Thought Machine gives me is flexibility in terms of future proofing. It allows me to go in a lot of different directions without trying to persuade my partner that it's a good idea to launch this or do that, which is more difficult when they've got lots of different stakeholder requirements. So I think Thought Machine it sets off our level of ambition in terms of what we're looking to do. But what we've deliberately looked to do with the architecture, every part of it, we've looked to future-proof. We're not. The worst scenario for me is to re-architect, to start having to chop and change. So we've been, although we're very incredibly a microscopic entity at the moment because we've not launched, but we have built it with a view to scale. We've built it with a view to business. We've built it over a medium-term time horizon in terms of what our ultimate aspirations are, in terms of what we can deliver, and all of the platform components, whether it's reg reporting, our general ledger, our AML like quick example, our AML, it covers 200 countries in terms of onboarding. So we're not just thinking about the African continent when we chose that. We were thinking about our longer term aspirations across the diaspora. So I think everything's built for scale, and it will also give us the opportunity, if the business case makes sense, to port some of that overseas if we choose to. So we've got lots of options, and that's, as CEO, all I want is as many options on the table to be able to deploy based on what the macroeconomic environment throws at me. So I think this architecture is very flexible.
I love that. I love to hear that. So what I heard is that, this combination of Vacuumlabs helping you as experts, Thought Machine as amazing solution, it's for you, it's a future-proof architecture and solution supporting your ambition. That's, from what I hear, it's quite big, right? So
yeah, no, definitely. And there's other component parts in all of that. We've chosen Very Park as a CRM, which is a tier 1 provider. We used Encino at Recognised Bank, so we iterate and learn and think about. I think the architecture this time is benefited from previous experience, so that we mature in terms of our thinking and our aspiration. And we've built an architecture here that I don't think there'll be another neobank in the UK that will compete with it.
That's a bold statement, and I truly believe that we can do it together, definitely. But what I'm getting is that it's no easy task to build something from scratch, right? It has up and downs. The journey exciting yet very, very challenging. I'm sure you agree with this.
Absolutely.
So I have maybe a couple of questions for either to inspire fellow founders or someone in the corporate that's trying to build some greenfield, new brand, new product in their company. So maybe what's been maybe some of the biggest challenges, during this journey of yours?
Well, the technology platform hasn't been. Of course, there's always, we constantly, we've got something called Technology Committee, which is weekly, which is very unfair of me, but I pound the guys to give me a weekly pack, and I kind of am quite demanding, but, they execute so well. But what are the typical challenges for a new start? Well, some of them are a little bit mundane, but, not having adequate property, noise pollution, because you've got a room with 10 people in and they're all talking. Things like making sure that you're going to train your people, particularly the culture. When you bring in different people in from different places, they bring with them a certain level of Spanish practices and culture that they've inherited elsewhere. And we're trying to embed, what's our purpose? What's our core raison d'etre? Why are we here? What should drive us every day? What should we be thinking about? And how do we galvanise together? How do we come together? And obviously, when you're smaller, that's easier to a degree. As you grow, that becomes even harder. Trying to ensure that there's a sense of single purpose on our journey. So things like that. The fact that we've got split locations creates challenges. We've got our Centre of Excellence in Birmingham, we've got our head office in London, and we don't want people in our operations team to feel like second-class citizens, that they're cut away 130 miles away and kind of something of an afterthought. So we have to work constantly about how do we engage people. Hybrid working. Hybrid working is great for flexibility. It's not so great for nurturing and for upskilling. Video is pretty limited. So for me, my emerging leaders, I want to be pressing the flesh. I want them here. I want them to see what we're doing, to get them involved. I've just got some of my emerging leaders involved in our property steering group, where we've chosen our head office. And it's been a fantastic insight in terms of how they think, how proactive are they, what kind of contribution are they making. And there's all sorts of opportunities to give little bits of coaching and support, and so as I get older, I get more and more kind of upside from one, seeing my executive be successful. It's less about me now, because I'm in the final embers. It's about my exec, but also seeing the growth and the fulfilment of people fulfilling their own potential. So, hybrid's great, but there's a risk that people flatline and it becomes more transactional. And I'm working very hard to say, of course, you've got time at home. Of course, we're going to be flexible. But still, let's do the people development bit. Let's really invest in your competencies and your behaviours and get you to be the best you can be. And for you to do that, I need you in the office. So the trade-off is I'm upskilling you. Yeah. Not when I say I need you in the office, not 5 days a week. We work hybrid like most people, which is 2 and 3, things like that. So, but for younger people, I think there is a challenge about. The really ambitious ones get it. If you're doing a really good job, but you're kind of happy where you are, then the motivation for coming in is probably a bit less. And you have to kind of adapt to everybody's needs. You don't want 100% stars. You couldn't function. You need a mix of different people's and different motivations and how it fits around their lives. But hybrid's a real challenge, and we're working hard on addressing that, but not technology really. Technology, I'm not underestimating because it's probably the single biggest execution risk in our plan, but it's bang on track and it's been executed incredibly well.
Nice. Happy to hear that. And then maybe on the other spectrum, so I have a business of my own, and what I love about early stage, also from my past experience, is the sheer focus that you have on the customer, on the problem. And when you get bigger, you get into more nice to have things, into, more political things, sometimes the office, sometimes the partners, a lot of discussions that maybe do not need to be as lengthy as they typically are. But at the beginning, during the first months, you have pure focus on the customer, pure focus on the problem and on the solution, on how you can solve it best. So I'm maybe curious, what motivates you, right? What are you most excited? What do you enjoy the most about this journey? You personally.
Well, I was very fortunate in that my corporate career, and I say corporate as in big bank career, I was very fortunate. I ran the SME brand for the RBS and NatWest. So that was 1 million SMEs across the UK. That was the biggest franchise in the UK by a country mile. So I've had 3,500 people report to me. And at the minute, I've got 20 odd reporting to me. It's a bit of a difference. But what, I think there's different types of people that enjoy different sorts of environment. There are some corporate people that simply can't survive in a new start environment. There's no PAs, there's no infrastructure. You got to get on with it, and mindset-wise, that's difficult for people. Equally, the people that love the startup environment and that creativity and also being involved in so many more things than a narrow vertical. You'll gain exposure across so many different things and they love that. And then as the business scales, it feels a bit more suffocating for them because they are suddenly a lot more specialist and narrow. So you see people that enjoy the startup phase and the early operational phase, and then they move on to do another new start. And maybe I fit into that category because in the last 12 years I've done 3 new banks, so I must partly fit into that category a little bit because I like the energy of this, and it's incredibly hard work. You know yourself. It is it's full on, but it's so satisfying to see the fruits of the labour, see the license, start to see the operational flow. And so what I've learnt over time is, the biggest challenge with management or leadership is being aware enough to tap into what people need. And everybody's different and everybody needs different things. And therefore, the more you can bespoke your approach to your team, the better the outcome. And different people have different requirements. But I think certainly the new start environment, I enjoy that. I enjoy building something, feeling very proud of what's been achieved, but also increasingly seeing people fulfil their potential. That gives me a buzz now. And without being boastful, I've long since passed the point where I need to work. I do it because I enjoy it.
That's my ambition in life. to get
well,
there.
when you've done 40 years, hopefully you'll be in the same position. But I think if you're there for money, find a purpose that you care about, because that is not a sustainable way to go. You need something to get up in the morning that keeps you going, that really motivates you. And if you haven't got it, go out and find it, because it's really important, because you spend more time there than you do in other environments of your life. But that, I think that's really what motivates me, and also solving problems. I love underserved markets where the CX, the customer experience, is poor, where there's an opportunity to disrupt or innovate. Intellectually, I'm drawn to that as well. I enjoy that.
Thanks. So we are coming to an end, and I have last question. So fintech or banking in general is, you obviously know, a regulated industry, and there is a lot of technology players that you need to combine so you can have your solution out there. So there might be people that have the idea, aspiring entrepreneurs, but they're hesitant because they are, afraid of getting into this very complex environment. Or even they're exactly someone in the corporate thinking about maybe we should build another fintech service alongside our business, whatever it is. But they are like, hesitant to do it because there is a risk in building fintechs, building such a complex solution. So what would be your advice to these people that are thinking about it?
Well, the first thing is they have my admiration, because if they do step into that world, not everybody has the risk appetite. So well done you for setting your business up. I think you have to have a certain risk tolerance, and so I've got great admiration for that. I suppose there are certain fundamentals that I've learnt over time that I think are very, very good advice. Make sure you've got capital. Don't go into a new idea with what might sound like a fantastic idea, but if you haven't got capital certainty, wait until you have got capital certainty, because going in undercapitalised is a problem. Second thing is ensure you've got shareholder alignment. I've had instances over my long years where I've had disruption around shareholders, and that is very time consuming and problematic. Just to be crystal clear, the best shareholders I've ever had are the ones I've got now. Korea, the most wonderful shareholders, patient capital, couldn't be any more supportive. I am so pleased, and that's what makes my job a real pleasure, because I've got such what I call smart money. Really smart, and they understand. So I think get your capital certainty, get your shareholder alignment. I suppose more generally, in terms of behaviours, very early in my career, I had a little light bulb moment, and it's actually served the test of time now for about 25 years. So I think it's reasonably good advice, because it still works as far as I'm concerned. So the fruit to pear, P-E-A-R. So P is purpose, but also purpose with passion and pride, real energy. What is it you're going to do? Have you worked out that it's sustainable? What are the barriers to entry? Do the economics make sense? Blah, blah, blah. You have to go through a bit of a rigorous stress test. Is this going to work? Is it, and of course, the market changes, and what looked like a good idea, you have to pivot. And I'll tell you now, my proposition has pivoted already, and I haven't launched yet. I was going to offer international students, and then the government changed the rules on visas, and suddenly that market, got reduced significantly. So you always have to be flexible and think about that. But purpose, passion, pride. The E is for execution. Execution as in right first time, delivering on your promises. Build a reputation for somebody that people can trust, and that has, it builds momentum. It gives you gravitas. A is for ambition. Ambition is about raising the bar. Actually, the best advice somebody ever gave me is change 10 things by 1%. Don't try to find one thing to change by 10%. In other words, quality assurance, quality improvement, Kaizen, as the Japanese call it, constantly raising the bar, looking at improving process, improving the experience, improving procedures. And then A, which actually arguably is the most important, and I'm sure it'll resonate with you, is resilience. Resilience, because in any business there's ups and downs. Things don't go in a nice linear pattern. They never have. So that's that reservoir of self-confidence, the ability to defend and be resilient, because not all stakeholders agree with you and you have to argue your case. So there's a quote from Roosevelt from 1915 that I've never forgotten, because it's such a good quote, and I'm only going to give you the little bit of it because it was a long quote and it gets a bit boring. But the bit that's really important is, it's not the critic that counts, it's the doer of deeds. And it's always stuck with me that, you know, people that go out in a business, they're pushing, you know, it's like a war of sorts, an economic war, a kind of penetration war, trying to get to break even. You know, be resilient, but remember that people will advise you not to do this or tell you it's wrong or this and the other, but stay the course, because often you know better than others and you're passionate about it and you're convinced it's the right thing to do. And then the final little quote I'm going to give you is from Gandhi, dear old Gandhi, and he said, be the change you want to see in terms of your behaviour. You know, be confident, not fake it till you make it, but, you know, believe in it and let others, it's infectious belief, inject it across the team, give people a sense of, you know, being inspired and excited and driven, and it's the most wonderful journey.
Thank you. I'm going to remember that because of the acronym, and I love that. So, Jason, we are coming to the end of our talk, but I truly want to thank you because, first of all, for coming here to Bratislava to have this with us. And second of all, for picking us to be your partner, because our people, they love building impactful products on top of amazing technology such as yours and Todd Machine and everyone that we put together. And I cannot wait to see your product live and to try it out. So good luck with what's ahead of you, and hopefully this partnership is going to continue for long.
I think it will because we've been super impressed. So you know, long may it continue, and it's delivering wonderfully.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.